Greetings, everyone. Welcome to my capstone presentation titled Putting the Guest Back into Guest Services. My resource guide / facilitator was the Dr. Anthony Cobbs, executive pastor of the Resurrection Baptist Church in Schertz, Texas. The capstone project site was the same, also including the Redland Oaks campus, which is located inside of San Antonio. This project allowed me to apply experience and observations, knowledge and skills that I've acquired through life and through matriculating in this Master's of Divinity degree at the ITC. As a student of the ITC, it is impossible to approach any topic concerning the church, and the Black church in particular, without seeking to understand African cultural influences. The African American church culture is infused with traditional practices of hospitality. At the core of our churches, communities, and families are the ancestral values that guided our foremothers and forefathers. African theologian and anthropologist Dr. Jean Marie Quenam Hyacinth looked at the Greek concept of xenia and the practice of hosting and caring for foreigners, strangers, guests with generosity and cordiality. The African womanist theologian Mercy Oduyoye is quoted in an article by Julius Gathogo in her belief that religious meaning is linked with the ancestors. Given these references, one can imagine that as the African slaves came into their new land and began to gather in hush harbors and in prayer houses, that they would find spiritual respite and they would welcome the new faces who came into the experience. Hospitality in the African American church is about creating space for belonging. This has been the hallmark of the Black church tradition, from the years of secret prayer meetings through the mass meetings of the civil rights movement. We can safely say the Black church has been crucial in how Blacks understand community and belonging. As this project began to take shape, the question that motivated us was, what is the difference between a visitor and a guest? The outcome of this project seeks to measure how improving and increasing the number of touches a guest receives. For example, the greeting practices, the calls, emails, addressing prayer concerns, etc., would increase the number of guests returning to worship and or the number of guests who eventually became members. One of my jobs as an intern was to assist Miss Jamie Edwards, our receptionist, with calls to first-time guests to each of our campuses. Calls were made on Mondays and followed up on Wednesdays. We used a script that allowed us to also accommodate questions and possible prayer requests that had been placed on the guest card. In the slides that follow, I'm going to be showing you some of the approaches that I took to this project. One of the practical approaches we took is that we began to ask the guest facilitators during church service to intentionally include an invitation or an appeal for first-time guests to come and greet the pastor after service. My role in this was to assist the pastors following each service as they were greeting guests. While the guests were waiting to meet the pastor, greeters collected the guest information forms, and my role was to engage in conversation with the persons who were standing in line, and then to introduce them to the pastor. The guests were and are currently receiving a gift bag that has a CD or DVD, some type of gift with the church logo, and information about the church. One of the tremendous things about Resurrection Baptist Church is their utilization of the Church Community Builder, or CCB, which is a cloud-based church management tool that helps the church leaders to engage with the members of the congregation more effectively. Information, for example, from the guest cards is placed in a queue titled First-Time Guests. This information becomes available to appropriate ministry leaders for follow-up calls, emails, and future mailouts. The guest follow-up is one of the CCB features that allows ministry leaders to follow the guest from a first-time visit to possible membership status. It also provides data and statistical information that can help ministry leaders develop more effective ministry. A unique thing happened in the course of this project. Our pastor, Ray D. Brown, decided to do a series in January and February on the book Becoming a Welcoming Church by Tom Rainer. This was a wonderful development because I was using the book as one of the resources for this capstone project.
That we are not a friendly and warm church, but it is for us to examine and assess and look at how we can be better, amen. And so that is truly what we have been challenged to do with this particular series. On tonight we have a special installment of this, if you will. We have a dual purpose on tonight. Tonight we're going to assist the presenter of the night with a project that she is doing to wrap up her Master of Divinity at the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, ITC, one of the best seminaries in the country. She is wrapping that up. She will graduate in May. Amen. I am talking about Minister Joe Waters, but also I am talking about
Stone for graduation is putting the guests back into guest ministry. And I totally 100% concur with what Pastor Cobb said. We do an amazing job. As part of this project, I've had an opportunity to do some serious research of what's going on around the country, what other churches are doing, what the best trends are, and we are up there. So Tom Rainer's going to help us, but we are on target. So give yourselves a hand, ourselves a hand. So Rainer in this book, it's an awesome book, I think in chunks, and I like the fact that it's not a hard read, but in this book, and sometimes no matter how much we do and how much we plan, somebody will walk away and say they didn't do this or that. But if we're trying and if we're cognizant that every minute matters, the touch from the parking lot, the touch from the front door, the touch in the lobby, the touch coming through the door, the touch in the pew, the touch from the pulpit, and the touch in the fellowship. There's all of these opportunities to touch the life of that guest. And yet, in all that whole 2 hours, hour and a half, those first few minutes really matter. And I got a question for you that's coming up, and you're going to see why I said that.
In the course of this project, I really need to point out why Ubuntu matters. The African theme of interdependence causes us to consider that the efforts of hospitality lead the guest to become a member of the group. African hospitality, African American hospitality, is rooted in the idea that no one is an island and each of us is needed for the whole to survive. Thus, I am because we are, and since we are, I am. This is consistent with Paul's theology and the need to recognize one's gifts and talents are needed in order to edify the church and to bless our entire community.
Much on a great job. I just wanted to make a comment and brag about our church. I know when I first joined, I was trying to think of a reason why I should not have joined or why I should have left because I was a guest. But I realized after I joined, I was going through such a rough time in my personal life. And all of a sudden, Sister Brown came up with a program. And I was one of the individuals selected to be a part of it. And it actually got me more involved in the church. I got an opportunity to learn more faces and put names with faces. And I also learned some life skills that I still use till this day that helps me get through rough times and document some of my good times. And I'm just thinking like, there can't be another church out there like RBC that just meet a member needs right where they're at. And so I just wanted to brag on our church that we do such a wonderful job. And one thing I wanted to say that we can improve on, I do know I was a member for a couple of months before I even knew that there was a nursery. And so maybe if we could just announce it maybe sometimes in the congregation or just do a little bit better with our signage to let parents know that we do have a nursery as well as youth service going on as well.
Awesome. Y'all give her a hand. That's how we grow. We see what we're doing well and we see what we can do even better. Anyone else?
One of the things I've learned as a result of this project and working with Dr. Cobbs is the concept of disruptive innovation. This is a business term, but the church can use it to identify how the church in the normal work of ministry must remember the mission and vision, often while learning from disruption. As this project was coming to an end, COVID-19 was a disruptive innovation. Churches are now experiencing this across the globe. As a team at RBC, Dr. Cobb states, we are experiencing a positive change of direction and a shift in the flow for the better. An honest evaluation on how guest services can improve requires ongoing research and searching for methods that will transcend the disruptive innovations and allow the church to welcome and serve guests even during the days of a pandemic and certainly in life after the pandemic.